Buenas tardes, buenas noches, buenos dias, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. I'm Don Dino Espesini, and we're here with Oye, Dimelo Cinema Club. Pew, 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 pew. Today, I'm here with Mr. Jason Eccles. We also have Steve Ades and El Profesor. And today was my pick for the movie, and I picked Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. It's on Netflix. It came the same year, just months after the Disney rebooting their Pinocchio, and so don't get them confused. And so I decided to pick this because Guillermo del Toro always has super interesting and fun kind of monsters and mystical beasts and stuff like that, and it's stop animation, and the trailer looked really cool, so I decided to pick this movie because I wanted to see his take on this timeless classic, if you will. So that's why I picked it. It has a cast like no other, right? You got Ewan McGregor, you got Ron Perlman, you got Cate Blanchett, you got Christoph Waltz and Tilda Swinton, and David Bradley for the people that are into Hot Fuzz and all those movies, as well as he's in the Harry Potter movies, and he plays the new first Doctor in Doctor Who. So he's playing the old one, but for new stuff because the old one died. Anyway, sidetrack right there. So yeah, let's just get into it and let's hear about initial thoughts of Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Hey, Jason, you're next to me. How about you start?
All right. Well, if I must, I will. So
You must. You must.
I really like this Pinocchio right off the bat, and I don't know that I really wanted to like it when we started, because once the movie began, I was recalling what the story of Pinocchio was. I'm like, man, I don't even like this story of Pinocchio. Like, I don't like Pinocchio. I don't like it as a fairy tale. I don't.
He said it like 5 times. I was like, oh boy, we're 5 minutes in.
Yeah, I just it recall it, like it just came to me as an adult for maybe the second or third time in life. But when I think about the story of Pinocchio, like I don't really like this. I don't like the setup. I don't like the bullies. I don't like none of it. I just don't like it. It's a little dark, and boy, this thing like really hone in on the darkness that was always lurking underneath Pinocchio for me. It deals with some real life issues and some real death issues, and I don't know. I think it's a little too dark for like small children off the rip. But I will say this thing for me puts Del Toro in a place next to Tim Burton. I was actually saying like I think maybe he surpassed Tim Burton at this point. So I think very highly of this film. I think it's probably the best animation that came out this year. I haven't seen everything, but I mean I don't know what could beat this thing. That's my thoughts right now. I hear Puss in Boots is great, but I would need to check that out. So this thing works in a lot of different ways. It works as an animation. It's obviously what do you call that?
Stop animation.
Stop go animation. Stop animation. Yeah, it's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece when you think about it. I mean, I've never quite seen animation quite like this before, and there's a lot to be said about this movie off the rip. I was very impressed with it, but when the film first started, I was like, I don't know. I don't know what this journey is, but it was so different than any other Pinocchio story to the point like I like this Pinocchio story. I will watch this movie again. This makes me appreciate the whole Pinocchio story a little bit better because it kind of reminded me of like the immortality of like vampires. Like Pinocchio is faced with like the vampire effect or the AI effect, where it's like, well, I'm gonna outlive you guys. That's my first thought. I know that's a lot, and I know it's all like compressed in there, but that's what I think of the film.
Thank you. All right, El Profesor, how about you?
Yeah, man, this movie had like a million themes. It had loss, it had abandonment, it had regret, it had fatherhood, and it was like a couple times reminded you of each theme with certain lines in the movie. I really, really liked the animation. To me, it was like kind of like you said, Tim Burton. I can feel like a Nightmare Before Christmas vibe in the movement of the characters, but they looked more to me like that movie Isle of Dogs. I can't think. It's
Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson, yes. And that movie to me definitely had some vibes with the way the animation is. And I watched the featurette after you mentioned that there was one, and definitely it was cool to see the updated version, because I had seen people do stop animation, like, I don't know, claymation, like Christmas claymation. And like this was like way more, you could tell it was very updated, and it looked really cool. So overall, yeah, man, I really, really enjoyed this movie way more than I thought. I do not like the story of Pinocchio in the same respect that Jason doesn't as a whole. Like, it was one of my least favorite Disney movies. But overall, like, this really changed my mind. And it is not a remake. I'm 100%, I would not call this a remake of the story of Pinocchio. It's got so many different aspects that are different.
Sweet. Senor Steve?
So now that you guys talk so highly about this movie, I'm gonna go ahead and actually give it a watch.
Okay.
I'm totally joking. I actually watched the movie. No, this movie, just like Jason was saying, I honestly like. I was in awe of how great this movie was, because the same thing happened to me. I was like, I'm not a huge fan of the Pinocchio story, but the way that they used that base to basically also peel other layers in many different themes that this movie touches, it it was amazing. I haven't seen the featurette yet, but I'm definitely gonna watch it. But the movie itself was actually absolutely incredible. And the other thing that I didn't expect, especially for being such like a dark sort of film, meaning like it has scary components, it was also very funny. Like, it had many moments that was very humorous, and I really appreciated that. And I'm not a huge fan of like movies that break along in sing-alongs, but I really thought like even the songs and everything was very appropriate. I never felt like, oh, this is too much, or anything. Everything was like very well paced, and I was just shocked of how great this movie was. Like, I was just glued to the movie.
Awesome. Yeah, in the featurette, they even talk about, even Guillermo talks about that they didn't want it to feel like a musical. They didn't want it to be a musical. They wanted it to be like a movie with some musical moments, which I think definitely helps it stay more grounded in the world, not grounded as like real life. All right. Well, I'll give my initial thoughts. I actually had a little, when it first started, a little trepidation, I guess, because I felt that the voice of Pinocchio at first was super annoying. I don't know, maybe just me. Like, it felt a little high pitched. Apparently, because the movie took so long, it was like 12 years in the making, maybe 15 years in the making to make the movie from beginning to it being released. And the little kid that I guess plays Pinocchio, his voice changed so much from the beginning of him recording to like when I guess he ended, that they had to go and actually with computer or whatever, like change his pitch or whatever to sound more like when he first started recording for the movie. So that's just wild in itself. They talk a little bit about that as well in the featurette. So I definitely recommend like you watch the movie and then watch the featurette. It's just fun. But yeah, so at very first I was like, oh man, I was waiting for something darker, like more of the Guillermo del Toro kind of to come out, and I was like, oh man, this when is it coming? I was like, I know it's around the corner, but right now it's just a little too silly, a little too kiddie for me. And sure enough, once it kind of started to turn, it turned. And I mean, again, it's like his third film that he deals with fascism, right? Like the other ones were like pre Spanish Civil War, the Civil War, I think, and like post that, and then this one is during World War II. and Mussolini is in Paris. So like he uses so many different types of stories to, you know, actual events to interplay with what he wants, the narrative that he has, right, in Lost and all that. So yeah, as it went along, I just started loving it more and more, and like the humor that would come out, and Ewan McGregor, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. And once death and life started to, you know, kind of repeat itself, like it's almost like Groundhog Day, and like all this, like what this is part of Pinocchio, and I had to try and remember also, like, is this a story? But yeah, so interesting in love in enough. Disney came out with a remake, and I don't think it did so well because the original Pinocchio, like the kids are like smoking cigars and drinking beer, and that's why they get like the donkey ears and all that. And so they changed all of that. They took it out of the new Disney Pinocchio, so it's just this super washed down version of what the original story and what the original darkness in that Pinocchio Disney was. Whereas this, instead of, and Guillermo del Toro was like, I didn't want to do a Pinocchio movie. I wanted to do my own Pinocchio movie. And he talks about Frankenstein monster and how Pinocchio is kind of like that. And yeah, it was so much fun. It had so many cool moments, even some visual gags, and definitely off the back, I would recommend it to people, right? Anyone who might be a Guillermo fan, whether it's Pan's Labyrinth, which is probably his most famous movie, especially in the U.S. So yeah, that's my initial thought. Next up, let's go into let's talk about the characters, and if you had a favorite character, who it was, and then you can follow up with if they were part of the, like, a favorite scene or interaction, or what for this kind of movie, a moment, right? Because it's the animation of that moment can be very awe-inspiring. Like, whoa, what? Like that's can really make you see it in a different light. Steve, how about you? You got a favorite character?
Yes, favorite character. I have to go with the cricket. Uh, I was very, very like I was just like, wow, this is such a different take uh, with his character. Just the moment that he's like, they made him like this like writer, and he was like settling in his vacation home to try to start writing, and he basically just goes on a ride. He just goes in this adventure, and it's really cool. And one of the moments that like it legit made me laugh out loud was when he was about to give Pinocchio like a lesson, like of like stay at home and be like disciplined. And when he's about to start singing, he just opens the door.
It's a song
I'm
about
going
his
to
dad.
church.
I had the same reaction. Uh, Daddy, and wham. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and it was just so hilarious. And just throughout the whole movie, like he's just trying to help, but he's so small that there's so much he can do, and he's just constantly going like, "Oh, love hurts, pain," like just so many things that is just hilarious. So
Yeah,
yeah, I have to go with him.
nice. I mean, almost the epitome. No, epitome. No, what's that word? Epitome
Epitome.
of fly in the wall, right? Like, I mean, he's got a part in it, but he's also our narrator, and he's a cricket, so he can see everything, and sometimes he's not even noticed that he's in the scene or in the space. So it's very much a voyeur kind of uh, look from him. And Del Toro talks about how once he started, I guess, working with Ewan McGregor, he was like, "Oh, there's something here," and kind of rewrote the script to kind of have the cricket and Sebastian more into the show, into the movie, and actually kind of follow him and seeing stuff through him instead of the other characters. But yeah.
Some of the best writing in the movie is around that character. Like, dude, the very end when he dies and they talk about him, he talks about himself being put into a matchbox and he closes it and he's like, kept me in his heart. And in his heart is that hole that the cricket was in at the very beginning of the movie in the tree.
Yeah.
Did you guys catch that?
Yeah.
I was like, that writing is phenomenal. Like, that's amazing. Like, I've just brought everything back. So I think that the cricket got some of the best. He gets some great lines. That smash scene was hysterical. You know what I mean? He had some scenes and he wasn't in it all the time, but man, he got stomped a bunch.
Nice.
Did you guys want to do? I got one, dude. That's
no. I'll let you go since you're riled up.
The monkey, the Spazatura. Was that the name?
Spazatora.
Yeah. So it's Cate Blanchett, and when I was watching that, the best scenes are when he's got them, you know, the puppet, like when the monkey is doing the puppets and talking to Pinocchio. Dude, I think that was Cate Blanchett's voice, right?
Yes.
And she's all those grunts the entire movie too. Like,
yes.
That is amazing. Like, what an experience this guy wrote for an actor and said, like, this is what you're going to do for this movie. You must be like so excited to go in every day. So for me, that was the character that I was like, man, if I got to play a character in this movie, that's what I would want to play. Like, because I feel like there's so much range there and like just so much more depth to that character than so many, you know. But David Bradley, in the end, his voice is like, I would listen to him read books all day. So I just honorable mention.
Nice. So that was the other thing. Again, I'm going back to the featurette as well. That's where I got all my knowledge for this talk. But I guess Cate Blanchett was in Nightmare Alley, also Guillermo del Toro, and found out about Pinocchio. And she's like, you need to put me in Pinocchio. I want to be in Pinocchio. And also imagine like Cate Blanchett also just being like, hey, I want you to put me in this movie. Like just volunteering to kind of be in the movie. And he was like, there's only one character that hasn't been cast, and that's this monkey that doesn't speak. And she was like, for you, I play a pencil, is what she said. So yeah, just the amount of emotion, from the stop animation that they're able to capture from just the grunting and all that, but then the playfulness of like when she is being the puppeteer, you can actually hear the characters speak. So it's this weird. It's a lot of fun with those kind of who's speaking, who's grunting, who do they understand without actually speaking the language is super cool and interesting. How about you, Jason? Favorite character?
Yeah. So in a film with so many characters that are very easy to favor and to like and to care about, which I feel like is everybody. Like the writing is like compelling enough to make you care about everybody's journey, which never allows for a dull moment in the film. It's really an incredible feat in the way, like even that the story is structured, like and how it's paced. Because it's all there. Like it managed to like not make any moment very dull, which is incredible to keep your attention like that and to be thoughtful and to be enlightened. So, of all those characters, and everybody sort of does a little bit of all of it, I gotta say the villain dude, the dude that ran the circus,
Count Volpe.
Yeah, I guess.
Christoph
Waltz.
Yeah, man.
I thought you were gonna say the Nazi, but go ahead.
Like I was really into that fascist guy, man. That dude knew what was up. Yeah, man.
Visual. So I kind of agree with you, especially visually from a visual standpoint. Count Volpe is, I think, the most wacky looking one, which is weird because there's so many wacky looking characters
wacky,
in
and
that.
His wordplay is incredible.
He's got, well, that's what always Christoph Waltz has been able to get away with. Is just even with his like thick Austrian accent or German, whatever, like, and even though he's like doing different accents now, he's got such a eloquent way of of using his voice
Yeah,
and enunciation.
it's got this beautiful rhythm to it.
Yeah,
It's like musical. It's got this way that he weaves in and out of the structure of the writing. It's incredible.
and they really captured that because his look, he's got like his hair is spiky, almost like Wolverine, only like they look like ears. He's
Like
got
Satan. He's got
yeah, yeah,
Satan
yeah, like a
ears.
wolf also, which is kind of what who's he based off in the from the cartoon. He has a sword cane, which I've always wanted a sword cane. Like those are cool, and just his outfit. So from a look standpoint, for me, he's definitely up there as one of my favorite characters. But yeah, the monkey, I just love the grunting and the I think maybe their tandem is who I like the most. Like, because again, for like puppets and stuff, or how they're able to play off each other so well, so so smoothless is a an achievement in itself. The other thing we saw, and I guess this going into like a favorite scene or a scene that you were maybe like, oh, I didn't know they could do this with stop animation, is they talk about the monkey Spazatoria when she goes from first meeting Pinocchio or seeing like, oh, this is Pinocchio, down to the carnival, and it's one single shot. Like Guillermo del Toro wanted film shots, like he wanted one single kind of following camera shot and all that, and that alone took 3 months. That one, like I don't know, like 30-second thing that we saw on the in the movie was actually 3 months in the making. So that's one of the interactions. But for me, is when they get to the boot camp, because there's this aerial shot going into the kind of the pyramid that the kids have to like climb up with the ropes, and it's yeah, it's almost like, are they filming this with drones? They're getting able to like move out and in. It doesn't feel 2D, right? It doesn't feel like animation. It looks like it's in the world, and the camera could come from any direction. And so for me, it would be, because that's also such a dark contrast and turn in the film, that it's the scene where you first discover the boot camp. How about you, El Professor?
So for me, it was the monkey. But I guess the big thing about all that is there was some propaganda in this one, fellas. They were showing,
Our propaganda meter.
there was a little bit of propaganda, dude.
A lot of
Mussolini being this
Antifa
tall.
propaganda. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys. Who Googled how tall Mussolini really was when they saw the Mussolini character?
So it
'Cause I
did
did.
make me think back to a documentary that I had seen, and I remember Mussolini having this weird. There's something weird about him, but I couldn't remember what it was. Is it his height? Is he short?
He's 5'7", which isn't
Okay.
like tremendous, but they clearly were going for that in the movie. And dude, does anybody know who played him?
I saw, but I can't
It
remember.
was Tom Kenny, and the only reason I know this is because I work with John. And dude, he is SpongeBob SquarePants.
Oh wow!
The voice of SpongeBob SquarePants
That's awesome.
is Mussolini in the movie.
Well, I'm making fun. Well, usually dictators, when they talk about Napoleon,
like Napoleon
super
complex, yeah.
short and all that.
Sure.
And then you weren't with us yet, but we saw The Great Dictator,
Mhm.
where Chaplin is Hitler, but then someone else plays Mussolini and is also kind of short and fat. So yeah, usually dictators and horrible people aren't shown, like
Yeah, possibly.
they're shown in its stupid, shorter statue, all of that. But yeah. Go on.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, that was very interesting, and then he's dropping in the propaganda because at the beginning, like clearly the guy was a Nazi, right? But like an Italian, so it made me go back and look. Like I didn't know if people in Italy were called Nazis in the same exact. Anybody have any background on that? I started to look it up.
It was
The guy had the red thing on his arm.
Yeah, but it was Mussolini, right? They were
Sure.
That was
So we're
the
German.
axis of evil. So
just had their own party that was like that.
They weren't Nazis,
They were
but they're
fascists, right?
fascists,
Yeah.
right? And they have the same ideals of like,
And they were going like this an awful, you
Yep.
know what I mean? An awful lot.
Right.
And even Geppetto was doing that back. And it seemed like he was just doing it because that's what was happening to him. But I
Well,
didn't
that's
know
where
if he-
his pencil or his chisel went flying, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, he's not used to, but
Doing
in
it.
that setting, right?
Yeah.
He kind of, he did it to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone was doing it, which is a horrible thing. With often gets said during those periods of
Sure.
of war that you're stuck in there, so that's what you end up kind of having to do.
Dude, and the movie keeps doing that throughout the movie where it's like there's a theme in the movie, and then it's like, I'm going to come back and remind you that this theme is also in the movie. And I'm going to come back, like the war, it came back a couple times in the movie. Like, there were multiple times people were regretful. Like, I felt like that kept happening in the movie where they were like, we're going to remind you that this theme is still in this movie. And I think he did it really, really well.
Yeah, same with Count Vault. I thought once they were in the war, it was like, oh, I guess we're done with the carnival. We're gonna continue to see this go in a different way, but that came back as well. Steve,
So one scene of the movie that's coming back to me is the scene of like basically be careful what you wish for, because essentially when Pinocchio comes to life and Geppetto is like, "Who the fuck are you?" He just starts causing havoc around the house, just complete havoc. And that was the scene that I was like, yeah, I'm still gonna hold off on the kids because I thought having a boy would be nice, but that looks like a disaster. And that
it had horror vibes at that point. I was like, whoa, like, but then it's like, yeah, I guess if you wake up to a freaking wooden doll come to life, throwing bottles and breaking shit and throwing knives, like, yeah, you're gonna be freaked out.
Dude, how long would it take you to get over that fact? Because you got over it pretty quick. It would take me like months, I feel like, to realize that this wooden doll is in my house talking to me.
Hey, man,
You don't have a cricket to talk to.
yeah,
That's true. I need a cricket too.
and
Steve
also,
does.
and when he went to church and everybody freaked out and he did the Jesus, I was like, yo. I was like,
but that's the kid mindset, right? That's where his naivety or whatever. He's like, you guys are worshiping a wooden. He doesn't. He's
Why did they like him instead of me? That's what he
right.
says.
We assume he hasn't heard the story of Jesus, our Lord and Savior, and so he's just like, there's this wooden guy on a cross that you guys are all worshiping. I'm the same, right? Not knowing, but this, speaking of just like how you're saying, like, it would take months to be cool with that, which is true. This is the longest stop motion animation movie ever. So I mean,
That's crazy.
that's.
I watched about the first 10 minutes of the featurette, or first like 6 minutes, because I watched it right before we started. I definitely got to watch the rest of it after all the things you were talking about.
Yeah,
I had no idea it took 15 years to make this movie.
yeah.
What studio would back that?
So apparently,
Commitment.
because I found out about the length reading up on it, but also he had started the movie and then at a certain point announced that the movie was canceled, which I imagine is just like budget, everything.
Sure.
And then Netflix picked it up. So as Netflix has done a bunch, being like, oh, a Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio movie, yeah, we'll bankroll that. So that's kind of what
Just
happened.
a Bird Box. We'll totally take Guillermo del Toro.
Nice. Do you have a favorite scene, Jason, or one that really jumped out at you?
Yeah, when the movie started to shift left real hard and Tokyo Drift right into the death scenes, I was like, oh, okay, here's the new take. I'm like, here's the new take. and it was really interesting and really enlightening and philosophical and a reminder. And it's like, wow, you're getting me to think about some real like mortal stuff right now. You know what I mean? Like some real things that everyone's got to deal with. Now the movie is like mad universal, right? Um, I think that was my favorite moment when he first went to like the death world. But then like when he went to the death world, it got pretty funny, and I'm like, oh wow, this movie could go in any direction. You could start a movie right here. You could start a series right here. It's Quantum Leap basically for this guy, but it's also a vampire tale as well, which got me thinking. So for that point of the movie, I really liked because I like the possibilities are endless. Which way they want to tell the story now?
It's not entirely a vampire tale because at one point he breaks the rules.
Yeah, I mean, but he does it to save Geppetto. He's willing to sacrifice himself, which is kind of the human aspect of it all.
I still can't believe he actually saved them with missing.
Without a leg and without an arm, I think he's just like,
I'll just make you another one.
yeah. But
Dude,
What
so-
happens to what do you call it? A story of Pinocchio where he lives forever, though.
well, that's what we saw. Because okay, so that was the thing, right? With cricket, it's,
Jiminy Cricket, yeah.
Sebastian is narrating, and I died, and I'm like, so how are you still narrating? And I'm like, I get it, you're a cricket. There's mythical this and that, and then we return to him now playing cards with the zombie rabbits. Also, that there's like rabbits that you can see their bones.
Dude, it was Donnie Darko. You guys see Donnie Darko?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
that
yeah.
reminded me of the entire time. Dude, what about the fact? Does the Zool character or whatever that thing was called, the Tilda Swinton's character with the big horns,
Yes.
right? The sprite, is she only in charge of one person? Because there was a couple sand things there. So is there sometimes there's like three guys standing around waiting to be reanimated?
I didn't notice that.
Oh,
Do you think she has like multiple people besides Pinocchio, like other
coffins.
souls?
You're right. There were coffins. Now I wonder if those coffins were the rabbits or if they were dead people or
Right.
characters. Right? Pinocchio was different. Oh, she talks about it because she said my sister kind of did her own thing.
Mhm.
In the very first meeting when he first dies, she's like, you're not normal or you shouldn't be here.
Mhm.
My sister decided to, I think, break the rules to begin
So
with.
then maybe there's only one.
Right. The other ones are normal ones because even the rabbits were surprised, I guess, when
Yeah.
because one of the rabbits, when they were carrying it and Pinocchio kind of started to shift or kind of say something, was like, are we sure this person or whatever is dead? And
But they planned for everything in this universe because they already had like a timer there and they had a plan for what was going to happen to that soul.
Right.
So it's a very forward-thinking group of people.
Well, she knew it was her sister, right? So
Right.
clearly she's like, and so I'm glad you brought that up, a little bit of that, because I was getting Studio Ghibli vibes from that, from the at the beginning where you have the little, when she appears, right?
Mhm.
Tilda appears to give life to Pinocchio,
First
and
time.
it appears as little balls of light and kind of, and then meeting the sister, which is like in Spirited Away, right? You have the sisters that are competing against each other, right? That have these rivalry, and it felt a lot like that as well, of just like they both are kind of good in the end, only that one deals with death and one with life and
Sure.
stuff like that. So
Oh, how about the scene where they are in, I guess, happy playground fascist camp,
paintball, yeah, what about it?
and then switch to this is real war?
Yeah, so my
No,
thing
no.
is,
Actually, even before we get there, can we talk about the fact that Carlo died because of a bomb
because of a what? A bomb?
In a church?
Yeah.
in a church?
Yeah.
Geppetto also was like right outside, but didn't get killed. You know?
Oh, what an action shot! Geppetto's like running in, and it's that explosion that just like fucking push it, like John Wick explosion pushing Geppetto out. And the pine cone. Oh, the pine cone, right? That's like the story of life, of just like the tree and the pine cone, and then you bury that, and then a new one
Prison
comes
neutral.
out.
A lot of use of guns too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
What's the backstory on the mom?
I
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Did
There's
they
no
even
women in
at
this movie.
all address that and I
yes,
missed it?
there were a couple. There was I mean, in the church
He's
scene, you
pretty
can see
old.
them.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple couples that they passed also here and there, and then in the carnival, there are a couple women artists
I
as
mean,
well.
women characters.
Well, I guess it doesn't pass the
There's there's
Belch test or
there's
whatever
no
that.
women characters in the story. I mean, other than like the sprites, I
Yeah,
guess. I mean, those are played by women, but do sprites have a sex? I don't know. The spirit, the
do they
death
say she?
spirit. I mean, that was just a spirit. Was that a man or a woman? Just
Did they call her as she?
They just say Sprite, I think.
They just said Sprite.
yeah. I mean, who
Some
knows?
version of a Sprite. I don't remember what they said.
But yeah, so I don't know. I noticed that as being a thing, and that's always kind of been a thing with Pinocchio too. There's no women influence in the whole thing. It's a little
Yeah.
weird. Like no women have any say so in this world. It's like they don't exist.
All right. Anyone has anything else they want to bring out or question?
I wanted the movie to end as soon as they went in the whale. Once everyone was in the whale, I was like, they should just live out their existence in this whale. Everything sucks for all of them outside of this whale. The cricket can suffer there too. Just live in the whale, fish there every day. The four of you hang out, and that's the end of the movie. For me, I really wanted the movie to end that way.
I could have seen that. I love that there was a freaking lighthouse. That way. Well, I believe it's a dogfish in the featurette. They call it a dogfish. Um, yeah, there's I also thought very ingenious because I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna create a fire and it's gonna sneeze like it did. And no, they found a fun, different way. They didn't overdo the whole line either, right? And of his nose getting bigger, and it was I feel that in the Disney Pinocchio, like the nose kind of retracted back. But this one is like we're cutting off your nose or we're breaking it off. Like your nose as it grows, like it's a full on like freaking tree. So I was happy with that kind of. I hadn't thought of it that way. Of the I just thought like, oh, it's magical. It will recede just as he starts not lying, type of thing. But so I agree a little bit with it would be cool that it would be a different thing, but I think this follows the idea a little bit of Shrek, where at the end the prince that's as a monster or they don't change into this beautiful person, right? Like they stay what they are, like in Shrek, right? They decide to be in ogre form because that's beautiful enough. And in this one, he doesn't turn into a real life boy. Instead, it's like kind of you talking about the vampire, the Frankenstein things. Like gonna now you gotta outlive everyone because everyone else is gonna die, but you're gonna stick around, which was a great kind of end to it. I thought because then it's like, yeah, is Pinocchio still around? Is he a barista now? A barista? On that note, guys, how about we get into final thoughts? Because we are doing it. We're gonna get out of here at a good time while we still have our captivated audience. So, Steve, final thoughts? Who would you recommend this? Would you watch this again?
Well, my final thought will be that it's a great movie. Definitely wouldn't recommend it to very young kids, but teenage kids, sure, and up. Uh, it yeah, like there's to me, this is the only Pinocchio version there should be. Period. Because everything else sucks. But this one's good. Because it has so many layers. It has so many things that it like addresses. Man, there's so many things that we can keep talking and talking and talking about. Like for example, the fact that like freaking the part that like the kid is like seeking validation from his father, and at one point he like gives him a real gun and goes like, shoot this Pinocchio motherfucker. I was like, yo, what? This got serious. um the fact that like, if you don't get the love of your father or grandpa or whatever Geppetto was to Pinocchio, you go into show business to seek that validation through fame. there's there's so many layers, man, to this movie. There's a lot of things, man. There's a lot to like. So great job. I definitely gonna check out the featurette. I can't believe this took 15 years, but I can see why, because it's just phenomenal. And yeah, I wish they would market more this movie, like tell people more about it. Because legit, I wouldn't have found out if it wasn't for Cinema Club. So two thumbs up.
Very cool. El Professor, the one father in the group
Yeah,
that
so
we know of.
that's
Uh, what,
that's the
what,
one thing that hit me, man. Is the very beginning. It messed with me. Having a kid now, like you can't help but associate things like that. And dude, it was rough. Like that was painful. And then they did it to him again, at least for 5 minutes when Pinocchio died. And I felt that. And I was thinking like, man, that just hits different. Like Battlestar Galactica, the TV show at one point, at the very beginning of one of the first season, they kill a baby. This woman comes over and kills a baby in a carriage. And I was like, I had like a 1-year-old and it hit me like so hard, like in a different way. So when he was like crying, I also was like, how did he end up with Carlo? Like that was a big thing for me too. Like, I don't know that he was his biological father based on his age and everything. But I think that's funny you brought this up. I think fatherhood is the theme that I caught the most, not just being a dad, but and all the best aspects, worst aspects, and like you can see yourself in all the mistakes that are made by fathers in the movie and all the good things, like because of how you actually feel inside. So I think that's why I really enjoyed this movie, because it was very relatable in that way. And as stop animation, it's the best stop animation movie I've ever seen. It was ridiculous.
nice. Jason, how about you?
Oh man, so right from the gate of this film, I feel like it's just loaded with all types of lessons. It gave me up vibes like right off the gate. I'm like, oh, they're trying to up us, trying to up us. Nice, okay, Del Toro, you're going to up us. But
And he upped us.
yeah, he used that as kind of a jumping board. I feel to kind of grab the audience emotionally right off the rip, and I think he used it effectively. Um, there's this really is layered. Like you could, it's a masterpiece. I wish I could have seen it in theaters. This is definitely that movie that I would want to see on the big screen. Um, so this will be out by the time anybody, whatever. But I think this is the kind of movie that's going to be played on big screens for a long time to come. Like there's going to be events and stuff because this goes right into like the gallery of work that Guillermo has done. Like it's right in his universe. It's right in his like kind of style, and it's really themes. Yeah, it's really just sort of centerpiece for his discography, or whatever you want to call it, filmography. He did something really special with this film, man. And like this is coming from an adult man watching a cartoon. Like it's more than just a cartoon; it's an animation. It's like it's an international animation. It's up there with like anything you can see internationally. It's such a universal theme that everyone has to deal with. and the idea of having relationships with family and kids, and your surroundings, and your wanting to protect them, and you know how do you identify with your community, and all that kind of stuff, man, and trying to be socially accepted. And there's so much stuff happening. It's the whole life in this movie. Like, that's the greatest thing. This movie like really teaches you, like, from a beginning of a life to an end of a life, like how to. It's almost a meditation, honestly. It's like there could be the philosophy of Pinocchio. This movie's really, really well done from every aspect. It should win all the awards, in my opinion. I'm serious. Like, this movie is really good. Um, I would recommend it to anyone. I mean, maybe not the smallest children. Maybe
Not our children, anyway. But
yeah, like 7 and down. Maybe no. Like, give them until they're like 8 or 9 to start having like that kind of conversation. And maybe not even then. This movie might honestly be something like maybe you say for a 13-year-old. To be honest with you, but kids will enjoy it if they have the attention span for it. I think it's awesome. If not, people are going to learn to enjoy it at some point in their life because this movie's great. It's going to be around a long time.
nice. All right. I'll get in mind. I'm glad you brought that, Profe, of like father son. A lot of those themes, because you have Geppetto and Pinocchio and Carlo before that, so you see how his relationship was. Then you also have Candlewick. Is it Candlewick or Candlestick?
Candlewick.
And his dad, who is a fascist, and then he even talks to Pinocchio about it, and just how everyone's just trying to please their parents. And you could even say that Spazzatura is trying to please the count, right? And even has jealousy. Well, they all kind of have jealousy to Pinocchio as kind of this idea. So yeah, there's so many themes. I really enjoyed it. I was a little, scared there for like the first 5 minutes because I was like, "Ooh, what tone is it actually going to take?" But it feels like a Guillermo del Toro film. Like, and what I like of his films, like, it has his like thumbprint on it, but they're all their own kind of individual films as well. So it might have themes, it might have looks, but it doesn't feel like a photocopy of what he did before. They're all different things that he wants to explore. So yeah, so I enjoyed it. I'd again recommend it to any Guillermo del Toro fan. Kind of, again, I said Studio Ghibli, people that like kind of that fantastical kind of world, mythical world, because it has a little bit of that. Um, Even if people are like Disney fans, I'd be like, well, you should check out this Pinocchio. So yeah, I'd recommend this to Michaela. I think she would love this film. Maybe even JP. If you're listening, JP, you should watch this film. So yeah, I'm surprised we all agree on this film of how good it was.
I feel like JP and Michaela will absolutely adore this film.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the pick for today. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. And Jason, you got a question for Steve?
Steve, what do you got for us next week?
Next week, I don't know what you asked me because it's not my turn. It is a professor.
Professor.
So we're gonna watch a movie that I saw in like 2003 or 2004, right out of college. I remember it being crazy. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but the guy that wrote it and directed it wrote like scenes in Pulp Fiction, scenes in Reservoir Dogs. He wrote some of True Romance. He wrote Killing Zoe. So he's very involved with Tarantino. And the movie's called The Rules of Attraction. His name's Roger Avery.
Oh, okay. I'm a little worried. She's got kind of a havoc hat going on.
Steve said as long as it's not Dear Zachary, he's fine with it.
I will be very happy to explore this film with you guys for multiple reasons.
We'll find out
Yeah.
next week. So join us.
There you go for Chris, Jason Echols, El Dondino, me, Steve. We'll catch you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.